All right, welcome everyone. Today is chapter 4, 5, and 6 of the discussion of the book, The Life Elysian. I'm a little more organized today. So I'm really sorry about last week. And to be honest, I'm still not sensitive to that pain, like that chaos that got created by how I presented it last week. I'm still like, to me, it's a normal thing inside of myself to be like that. So I'm going to have to become sensitive to what that feels like and then be able to apologize properly. And all I can say at this point is it must have been terrible. I don't know what it was like, and I'm sorry.
I was just really confused. I was like, what are we focusing on here? And I felt like I was scrambling through the book, like you'd mention a quote, and I'd be like, where's that? And I'd be trying to find it. And and at the end I was just like, I'm not sure what the purpose of the group, like I thought, is it just to say the resistances that you've got to reading it, like just for people who have trouble reading it, or is it more than that? So I'm so excited there's a bit of a structure this week.
Okay, thank you. And Karen loves structure. She's really good at it. I hear she can.
I don't know if I'm good at it, but I like it.
Thank God for that. So, and I feel encouraged by Mary. I felt like Mary gave encouragement of, you can talk about the resistance. It's okay. And I keep feeling like I need permission. I need approval. It was part of my discomfort about the book and the material too. So I feel a little more comfortable that it's okay for me to engage some of my passions about this topic. Because there's some good stuff, but even in the good stuff, I can feel my little like, yeah, but here's where I'm stuck with that topic. So I'll still get my fix of looking for resistance. Another topic Mary brought up was that why do I love resistance so much? It's something I could communicate better. It's something that I see something very valuable about it. And that's something that I'm thinking of writing down, maybe in like an essay, like trying to explain why, to me, that is the end goal, and that everything good comes out of exploring your resistance. Like, I don't have judgments about it. I'm not upset about having resistance. I get excited. And that's probably a good viewpoint to share with others too. Yeah.
Have you ever had judgments about your resistance?
Yeah. I receive judgments about being resistant from others. And I feel sometimes the way people talk in the community about resistance, it sounds to me as if it's being judged. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but it feels as if you have a problem. You have resistance, when it's more like, for me, it's like, there's an opportunity here. You found your resistance. There could be something good happening. Could be where it's coming from. What do you feel, Karen?
Yeah, I think it's great to find out. Like, if I feel resisted to something, then I'm like, oh, this is covering over something pretty big.
Yeah.
So and probably previously I judged it, probably more like what you were saying, and probably had judgment in other people as well. But now I feel differently. I'm probably not as passionate about it as you seem to be, but I can see where you're coming from.
And also, I used to have more facades and addictions covering over my real emotions. So I didn't even know I was in resistance because I covered it over. And now it takes me time to even find out, what do I actually feel about this, to even be able to go into resistance. And that's why I'm spending a lot of time actually trying to find out, what do I really feel about the sentence? Why does it bother me? Because I don't know, I'm disconnected from that in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, chapter 4 was the resurrection and its body. My goodness, so many things in here that gives me goosebumps. What are some topics that are in this chapter that you're interested to explore? This is where he's talking about mediumship and, how wonderful it could be if people on both sides could talk openly with each other. And then
I found that really interesting.
Okay.
Similar to what you said in your email, Dharm, just about the difficulties that exist on both sides and exploring that. And yeah, so yeah.
What comes up for you with the idea? Imagine the idea that we could all have like what Robert James Lee's had, which was people just dropped in and sat down and we talked. What would that feel like for you? How does that make you feel?
Who, me? Sorry. I feel a bit intruded upon if somebody was just dropping by whenever they wanted to.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd like that. If I set a time and they came at that time, maybe.
Yeah, so there's a feeling of intrusion. I feel as if I will not get a chance to develop, because if I have somebody that knows more about something, I literally will say, well, can you tell me more about this? And I will step back and I will feel as if, well, then how am I going to figure out who I am? Because I feel, I guess there's a comparison addiction. There is. It's like, if I have Kushna sitting next to me, I'll be like, you write the textbook for medicine, I'm good. I don't need to figure out my own ideas here. You already know it. Just give it to me. We'll just get going. So that's how I feel. Like I feel like I'm already so much smaller than everybody else. And so I get squeezed out.
So is that how clear a connection he had with the spirit? Because so it was just something that he could just connect to it, like call it in or however it is, and it would just come in, and it would naturally either speak or like he'd be able to transcribe through it. Is that how it worked? Or
these are the good questions. These are the really good questions to discuss. Like, what are the different ways that we can have communication that I think is dependent on our nature? Like, some of us are good at writing. We can kind of step back and let automatic writing happen. Some of us can have a conversation and then transcribe. Some can get feeling. I mean, feelings, ultimately, you want to get the feeling. And then you're trying to communicate the feeling. What is it? I think some people could probably get visions and describe what they see.
Yeah. Because I remember, and I don't know if it was about Robert James Lee's or not, but I remember Jesus saying one time that he said that there was some restrictions that he had, and he also said something along the lines that he was a smoker or something like that. And
Paget. Is he talking about Paget? Karen, do you know?
I'm not sure if I'm mixing them up, but it was just one of the mediums that he talked about one time, that they were clear, but they weren't always clear or something like that. But again, you know, people back then just smoked, right? or whatever, you know, they didn't maybe have that same awareness.
Hi, Selena. You made it. Okay, so what else would you feel like if you could have communication with spirits? Like, you talk about communication being problematic on both sides, which I really appreciate after our mentioning that. One being that we think any spirit communication we get, that person must be perfect, which isn't true. So we need to be able to discern that, I guess, is one of the issues we have.
Yeah, I think that I worry about like the condition of the spirit. Like, am I getting my guide, or is someone very bright and with good information, or someone trying to kind of mess around with you?
Exactly.
Information.
And I have been messed around with, and probably still am being messed around with. So that is something that is very, very confronting and challenging. So those kind of issues are making okay, how do I tell who's who? How do I get clearer? I would probably start with, what does it make me feel that I'm being manipulated by a spirit? What does it feel that I can't feel the spirit conditions? What does it feel that I'm being used, or that I can't see what's going on? I can't see what's on the other side in the beginning, because at some point you can see. But then I would start with those blocks. Like, those are like, I'm thinking that these are fears. All these fears coming up. Like, what kind of fears would you have about connecting, or even becoming aware that like in the last chapter, we saw the father having the spirit literally glued to him. Like, what would it feel like for you to go, do I have one of those? Like, what would come up for you? I was like shivering with dread reading that.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I was just saying, me too. Like, it's to be that unaware, I guess, is a fear of mine, you know, to be able to have somebody that dependent on me, that manipulating of me, that and to be unaware of it.
Yeah.
To be completely unaware of it that's a big fear. That definitely is a fear. I'd also be afraid, like, if I you know, if that happened to me, I'd be afraid that I'd be bombarding him with questions, and it wouldn't be my place.
What do you mean, like a benevolent spirit? Like, you mean if it was your spirit guide?
No, if it was my spirit guide,
you would
like,
have questions.
Yeah, I'd be like, well, why? Just,
okay.
You know, like a little kid, and I know that's encouraged, but it would be, I don't know if I would allow the question to be answered. Yeah, lots of fears around that have actually been coming up as I've been reading these 3 chapters. Lots of fears around, around lots of stuff. I've been triggered completely by these 3 chapters, so, which is great.
Can I just make a remark? Because like when you say, I want to hear something, and then I don't know where the answer comes from. Mila, doesn't that mean like the darker spirit could come in? Like maybe you're talking to your guide wanting a positive answer, but you're afraid. Then the darker spirit comes in and gives you an answer that's completely off.
Which is why it's good to know your fear, to identify your fears and release them. But on the other hand, addictions have more impact on the kind of spirits you attract. The spirits can manipulate our addictions and our fears. So I still have addiction when it comes to mediumship. I have addictions that it makes me feel that I'm special. It makes me feel that I'm better than others, that I have this cool, unique gift that not many people have. And then Robin said this past week, everyone's mediumistic, and I felt myself deflating, going, oh, well, there goes my factor. So I'm like, oh, look at that. Look at me feeling like, what? Everyone has it, but it's my cool thing. So it kind of like makes you feel like, oh, I still have those feelings. It makes me feel that I have power, because this way I can get information that nobody else has, and I can have power over people. So these are some of my dark motivations and dark addictions that I wasn't aware of that can influence what I do in mediumship, or actually not even attracting accurate information, because now you're going to have spirits that will manipulate my addictions to then hook in and then use me to project a lot of rage and anger at other people, which was how I clued in to that there's spirits attaching to me, and why am I open to them. So addictions are very, very important, like to understand your motivation and to understand if I have an addiction to feeling special, then a spirit can come along and give me the feeling of being special, and I will open myself up to being hooked in by that spirit. And then if I used to have a lot of spirits that make me feel that I was spiritually evolved. I had a spiritual facade, so I used to receive a lot of spiritual information, and I thought my condition was much better than it really was, but it was actually the spirits who were in better condition and they were using me. So I had to really feel about how much I'd been manipulated by spirits because I wasn't aware of my addictions. And then when I really want to see who they really are, now the fears kick in. It's terrifying to see who they really are. It's terrifying to see their real condition. And then you start to remember your times when you were young, when you could see spirits, and it was scary. And then you have to process those fears. And then you're not afraid of them anymore. Does that give an idea?
Mm-hmm. Is there a signature of a spirit that would, like, you know, that has familiarity? Like if you're calling in the same spirit, and if you, like, you know, let's say someday you're in an addictive state, or if you're in a fear or doubt space, and you call in something else, but is there something that you can just tell Like, I'm just curious if anybody has that experience. Sorry?
It's the feeling. So once I became familiar with what power addiction feels like, or once I became familiar with what rage feels like, then when somebody is projecting that, then you're going, you have an edge to you. There's an edge, there's an anger to you. You're not a benevolent spirit. I can feel that. Or I know that power addiction. I know what that feels like. That's what you're doing to me. So you start to, what you can feel in yourself, then you can start to feel in others. So if you can be humble to your own addictions and your own dark motivations that you haven't healed yet, right? It's not permanent. Then you can feel when another spirit is projecting that or using that. If I'm doing something and suddenly I start to feel I'm so important, I'm so cool, and I'm going to be okay, I'm going, wait a minute, where did that feeling just come from? Who just gave me that? What's going on? There's a spirit involved here. So you become sensitive to, but it's something, whatever I can feel in myself and I can admit in myself, I can feel coming from another spirit. And now there are a group of spirits that I'll feel like, oh, hey, you guys, I haven't seen you for a while. I know you guys. Like you can feel like there's a signature feeling. Or if it's your own guide, over time you start to feel what they feel like. And you can tell, oh, hey, it's you again. I haven't felt you in a while or something. But it takes sensitivity.
Yeah.
I think just to add to that, hi everyone. I've just been smashing through the last book as well this week, and I'm pretty sure they do mention that people like that. I mean, obviously, if you're more advanced, you actually are capable of transmitting that signature, and if you recognize or something. I'm not 100%, but yeah, I'm sure it's in there. There's something in there.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If you could learn from another spirit who have now developed those skills and abilities, what would you love to learn from them about? If, let's say, all these scientific discoveries are being made on the other side and they could teach it to us, what would you like? What would you like? Like, I would love to have Kushna come and share his knowledge on medicine. That would be like, what? Yes, you can manifest bodies. Oh my God, this would be great. So what kind of stuff would you have liked to be able to learn? Whether or not they manifest their bodies.
Everything?
Everything, yeah, everything.
You have to start with desire.
I would like to know about healing.
Yes, okay.
And the environment would be good, how to fix our environment, how to create things in our environment that decompose naturally.
There you go, specifics, eh? Decomposing, because it gets, the more specific you can get, the better, because then you're refining your own desire and then you can attract. Or be assigned someone. You probably already are assigned someone, actually, if that's your desire.
I've been wondering this week, like if there could be a way to recreate how the spirit world is here in terms of providing a space where people can go to heal, I suppose, like using the environment, using the lay of the land or the feng shui, or
like the house.
I don't know, I just feel like there's this way that we can create it through the environment to make it more open and available for spirits to come and then teach us.
I love that. I love that, Laura. Oh my God, that would be great. Okay.
Would be pretty awesome. It's like, how can we make that here? Because one of the things that I guess have bugged me my whole life of being here is just this, having to do time and having to do like work and things, to do with providing for yourself to be able to eat and all that sort of stuff. Like there's just such a focus on that. It's like there's not as much time to be able to develop spiritually in that. And we've created this whole society that's just full of distractions and nothing is just here for that purpose that I
so you like to create an environment in which, like a house of rest is what I'm thinking of in the first book, which is like the physical, natural environment invite healing, but you're also hoping that that would be a conducive environment for mediumship to happen.
Yeah, and I guess the more of us who are developed, we might have, you know, a stronger connection or ability to connect to spirits who are more developed than us, and so we can help those people, as, or even maybe along down the road, like when there's more acceptability of spirits here, like maybe that could be a place where they can come and teach us,
Yeah,
you know, physically. I feel like there's a way that can happen. I don't know.
okay. But that's the desire. That's how you start. You start to have a desire, and if you have that desire, you probably already have a guide helping you. You probably already have.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
Yeah, that's beautiful. See, we
and because I'm about to buy land as well, like I feel like it's all coming up now, because like, what do you know, what's the intention behind it? And yeah, anyway.
clarifying that, and then really nurturing that desire, like really watering it and spending a lot of time, and spending a lot of, like, letting it grow and grow and grow in intensity and passion. But that's the specific passion, right? Like it helps to like Karen, what would yours be if you could sit and have
lots of things. I think I'd be interested to ask. Yeah, I'm quite fascinated with how the spirit world works and what happens there. So I'd be interested in learning all different things that they're doing there, and I'd be interested in like buildings, how we could make buildings on Earth more sustainable and loving. Definitely things with the environment. I'd be interested in to just fix a lot of the damage we've done and how things can be done more efficiently. What you were saying, healing, I'd be interested in anything to do with that. I feel a lot of topics. I think I'd be talking all day with
I feel like you'd be the one of those that organizes the vault. Organize all the information coming in, and
I do love information and researching and stuff. So yeah.
How about you, Kevin? What would be your specific, if you could pick?
Mine. I have a background in economics, and I love business and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I'd really love to really learn more about how to build economies so that they benefit more people, like in, it's not the haves and have-nots type of thing. And that's a passion of mine. And I think the other thing that I'd be really interested in, I do love it when you have conversations with, I don't know, it could be, popular historical figures or whoever that is. Yeah. And it's almost like write their autobiography type of thing, write their biography from the spirit side. And even having that, like, hey, this was my life, and then this is my post life, things like that. I love that.
And who would that be for you? Who would you like?
You know what? It's people, like, I was just thinking, the first one that came to mind was like Einstein. I was thinking, like, I'm not a scientific thinker, so I'd be like trying to figure out how to manage what he says. But even people like Gandhi, or people, I don't know, that have just been there in the past, like, people like Winston Churchill, things like that, like leaders of the past, men and women. Like, there's so many wonderful examples, right? So.
Okay, thank you.
An experiment you might want to try. I mean, if there's like an issue in your mind, you could say, like, well, what would Gandhi do in this situation?
Yeah.
Right.
Kind of calm yourself and try and see if you can connect to Gandhi and see what you get out of that.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
just typing it. We did that one time in a medium session a few years back.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln came to the session for a different reason.
Okay.
And people came up with the ideas, like, let's all ask Abe Lincoln what he thinks, just whatever. Just, we took 5 minutes and we all wrote down different things, and it was like a really moving experience.
Yeah, awesome.
But Kevin,
that's a great idea.
But you have a spirit guide who's already attuned to your passion and desire. or what you need to be learning from. So it could be cool for you to start to go, who's my spirit guide, and how do I get to know who he is, and how do I get to feel his nature, and what is his name? Or I'm not very attached to names because then my mind try to come up with names, but that could be a good one to develop, because that way you start to get to feel who your guide is, and then you know who to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's just a lot more practice I need to pull in there, and just, you know, get into the habit of asking and connecting and see what comes up.
Yeah.
So,
Selena, if you could, instant pierogies. Oh my God, as long as you keep making those pierogies.
Yeah, well, that's sort of our big one, is our vegan restaurant.
Oh.
Spread veganism has been our big passion, so hopefully that can continue.
But if you could talk to some guides who could teach you some things, what would you?
Maybe, that could be the direction.
Yeah.
More direction, because we're kind of stuck right now. That's for darn sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Is it the COVID, or is it?
Yeah, we're in a mall and the numbers are way down. Like there's just not, like, all of the places are suffering, and actually a lot of places in the mall closed down. It's not looking real promising, even though everybody loves our food and it's really great food, and
it's the best burger I've had.
Our people that, like, big vegans in our community, are just ecstatic that we're there. And it's good food for anybody, vegans or non-vegans, which is what we're trying to promote. Is you can have fun eating lunch vegan just as well as you can anything else. So yeah.
Okay, so moving on, there was one sentence in the chapter 4 that I really liked, or a question about, which is, resurrection is a purely natural and always present phenomena. What does that take you? What comes up for you around that?
I thought that was really beautiful, that the resurrection is available all the time. Like, you don't, I feel like the point of that was trying to say it's not some future event where it's going to come, someone's going to descend from the sky and resurrect everyone on earth. That as Jesus demonstrated the resurrection of entering into the celestial heavens, any of us can do that at any time if we connect with God and follow, what Jesus did.
So my thing is, well, then why isn't it happening more? Why isn't it happening, or why isn't it happening more? Which I can feel my demands coming in right there, going, why isn't it? We need this. I can feel some of that coming in, but why isn't it happening more? Or is it happening more, but we don't want to accept it, so we don't know that they're walking among us, you know?
So sorry, before you ask that, can you just explain what that definition of resurrection is? I think I just want to, what does that mean? What is that trying to imply in the book? What are they saying? It's not reincarnation.
No,
I feel it's the resurrection of becoming at one with God. And so it's entering the celestial heavens, which no one had done before Jesus. So Jesus was the resurrection, and once you become at one with God, you have the everlasting life. So it's kind of seen as a resurrection.
And that you can and that you can manifest a physical body on the planet, on Earth.
Yeah.
Is where I went with it, going, that means that you can then pick an appearance and show up on the planet, which is what Jesus did after his passing, right? 3 days after or something like that. Like, that's what I'm thinking resurrection means.
I just looked at it as a person becoming a spirit body, that you had a spirit and a physical, so I totally missed the point, I think.
That's what I kind of got as well, because there's a lot of reference to it.
That it's about showing back up on the planet, that you're a spirit body showing up with my physical body? No.
When he was mentioning resurrection, he was just telling that we have a physical body, plus we have this spirit body. So maybe reading into it, my different truth knowledge.
So we all have different definitions.
Interpretation.
I didn't look into it like as detailed as you did, so I glossed over, I guess.
I feel like when they're talking about being born again, that's when they're talking more about the
Oh,
I see what
okay.
you're saying.
transportation to the celestial or the kingdom of heaven. But that's my
I see.
understanding.
See,
Any thoughts, Selena, Jill? What are you thinking?
I was kind of on the same front as you, that I thought it was coming back to earth.
Being able to have a physical body. Okay. Okay, so that'll be something that can discuss in the book discussion then, for sure.
Yeah, it has different meanings in the Bible too. I think so. I'm a little bit kind of all over the place with it, what it means. Because resurrection in the Bible also means when Jesus comes to get you, he'll resurrect you. You know, you've been dead, and then if you're going to be one of the chosen people to be, so there's that connotation.
Okay, so
he was also resurrected. So I guess I thought that was maybe more him coming back from the dead in the sense of being on earth, resurrected.
And being able to pick a physical body in order to manifest on the planet. Being able to.
yeah. I think when I'm reading it now, I'm thinking, it's more what you guys are saying, that it's a resurrection of the spiritual body, rather than the resurrection, the born again.
Well, so Jesus was able to do that because he was at one with God, or is it that once you're high up enough, like in the 5th, 6th sphere, you can do that anyway? Because there was somebody Jesus spoke about in Russia who was, I think, in the 5th sphere, and she was manifesting a body. So there's this kind of like this, okay, what point are you able to manifest a body? Or is it that is the desires of people here that our strong enough desire can bring that about? How much does that make a difference?
It just makes me think about aliens and UFOs and how they manage to manifest a body sometimes and appear to some people. Like, maybe it's, I don't know, like, I know I've heard it spoken about before that like a lot of people or a lot of spirits together can portray an energy. Perhaps they can portray also a physical body with the collective.
You're in a lowest condition. If you're in a lower condition, you need lots of you to project energy enough to be able to have an impact. That's not very good condition.
I can't imagine, like with the UFO sighting type situation, is that a loving condition as well? Is that why?
Probably.
I don't know, maybe we'll have to ask.
I've just glossed over the whole UFO thing. I've not looked at and don't
I
want
don't know why I thought of UFO. It's not, there's nothing, there's no reference to that in here or anything.
Just personally, I just go,
my head.
Okay, so that's, Karen, you were about to say something.
No.
So that was chapter 4. And then, okay, the verse. Anyone want to give me an idea what that verse is about? There came unto me one of the 7 angels.
Oh,
I
had a massive question mark over that as well. I was like, what?
Historically, do you know how that came about? For those of you who've read.
Which verse are we on? Sorry.
In chapter 4.
In our book, it's 32, page 32.
On my book, is it page 40 of the PDF?
Oh, yes. Yeah. This verse.
It starts with, and there came unto me one of 7 angels, which had 7 vials full of 7 last plagues, and talked with me, saying, come hither.
Yeah.
I felt like he was giving this verse to refute the criticisms he'd received from Through the Mist, that people were saying that his descriptions in that were too like similar to Earth, and that there were cities and this type of thing, and that people were saying that like heaven is in the air, and so they were giving a Bible verse to say heaven is in the air, so he was refuting it with this to say, well, no, this Bible verse is saying clearly that there's cities, and that it's not an airy concept.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was defeating or giving, I guess, proof or whatever about the blowback that he got, that he was saying it was too materialistic.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, this is what the verse is of the thing. But yeah, I kind of got lost in that verse as well, that I understood it the first, and then it just kind of went on and on and on, and then I'm like, okay, I don't understand it.
Okay.
I'm kind of lost here.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I thought what he was talking about, at least what I was reading into it, was almost like he was saying, like, they're saying this information hasn't been given to the earth before, what he was giving, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And then he's illustrating that, yes, it actually has, because this verse kind of says things about like seven angels with 7 vials, and it's like the 7 spheres of the spirit world, right? And then talking about the different stones, and there's, walls, 12 gates and 3 gates, all these different locations. So he's talking about the spirit world being so varied and so big, as he's spoken about before. And then he talks about the walls of certain cities garnished with a manner of precious stones, which are colors. Each stone would have a different color. So I thought it was like a Bible verse that you could somehow interpret as being, they're talking about the spheres, they're talking about the colors, you're separated by colors. They're talking about you can't get into one location with the other, so you don't need gates. So that's how I looked at it.
Okay, so he's kind of saying it was already mentioned in the Bible. What I'm going to hear was already affirmed in the Bible from history.
That's how I looked at it.
And what I read was that is one of the apostles, John the Apostle, that was actually taken up there by an angel to be shown the New Jerusalem, or how he saw the new heaven.
Okay.
And it was really big, but it really fortified to keep out sinners, which is kind of an analogy to, I would think, that God's laws don't let you in there. If you can't be in there, you can't be in there. But they've got a lot of guards and angels, like from his perspective, it's all guarded. And you can only get through the gate if Jesus lets you in, kind of thing.
Okay.
And you don't need a temple in there because Jesus and God live there. That's the religious interpretation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I thought it was an actual, like, probably different to you, Judith, it's an actual city, like just one city, not an analogy of different locations, just because the line after it ends, it says, nor is the heavenly Jerusalem to be scripturally understood as the only city to be found in the home of the redeemed. So I kind of interpret it as that's just a description of an actual city in the spirit world. That's what it looks like. And
yeah, because he also goes on to say faithful individual service with rulership over 5 and even 10 cities.
Yeah. There's all of that governorship and Okay.
What does the lamb refer to? Like I know that. I was just curious.
I just thought that was a mistake.
Well, isn't that a reference to
Jesus? I thought,
It's what?
Reference to
Jesus.
Oh, the lamb.
Sorry, I missed that.
That's Jesus.
Oh.
The lamb's wife?
Yeah, I think the lamb's wife
must be Mary.
An analogy. Mary. But I think it's an analogy of from the Bible. They were kind of saying that how do I explain it? It's kind of giving an analogy of a bride on the wedding day is all dressed up and adorned, and that this city is like a bride adorned, and that you're being gifted.
Oh wow!
Wow.
My interpretation.
Yeah.
So it's the lamp. So the city is it's just kind of an analogy for how adorned this city is. If you read how adorned it is with jewels and different stones. And
wow, I like that work. Okay, so chapter 5.
Okay.
Which is, you can see I'm quietly walking away from the Bible verse again. It's like I got to feel stuff about that, which I am going to process. I got to get over this. It's getting a little bit funny. So chapter 5, the angel of death, which is the conversation. I want to say they were hanging out. So he was hanging out with Abraz. I guess Vayon, I keep mixing up her name. Received the information that they are going to get to, I want to say, sponsor a child. They get to adopt a child, which is quite a beautiful way to adopt children. You just, you're suitable, your soul condition is good enough, you get to have a kid. Is about to receive Dandy. So they are gone to the college, which is, I guess, the sleep state phase.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry.
Okay. And that there's conversation going on about how much the children are looking forward, Arvez, his name is Arvez, are looking forward to being picked, that they could die and get to go to heaven, get to go, I'm assuming, second year after they die. So there's a lot of emotions. And along the way, they meet a mother. So that's the part where they meet a mother who's, I thought it was very thoughtful that she's being prepared, like your time is coming, your body can't sustain life anymore, you're going to have to leave your baby behind, and then she's all emotional about it. So I have a lot of emotions about that whole dialogue. Like, do you know what I'm referring to?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what thoughts come to you when you read about the mom who is being very lovingly kind of like persuaded? She's being, to secure her submission to the inevitable. It's like, they don't just yank you out going, time to go, let's go. But they're very gentle and persuasive in trying to get her to understand that she needs to go. Mm-hmm. But in the book, they're saying it is better, you will learn that it was better for you that you had to go and come back and take care of her as a spirit being instead of being there physically. So how does that stand for everyone?
I think for me, the part that kind of was a little prickly for me is that for her, it didn't seem like it was her choice, that she was being forced to die.
Yes.
And that it was, she's like, no, don't take me.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave my child, but doesn't. So then the question brought up, well, if it's not her choice, then isn't that against free will?
That's a good, exactly. Well, there's insinuation here that, I make no request, my sister, but they who watch as the eyes of the Lord have foreseen the weakness of the flesh and know that you will be thrust away. It is the body that will discard you. So basically, her body is no longer able to maintain life. The body will be pushing her out. So
her body is making that choice.
Yeah. For whatever
the laws I feel has made like the physical laws have made it like the laws God has in place. Yeah. Like some have been broken, and so the body can't sustain itself. So then it's the law that she must pass.
But what are the feelings that comes up for you though? What are the feelings that comes up for you? Like, it's not her free will. If it was me as a mom, I would never want to leave my child, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm doing this against my free will. You're making me do this.
You're making me. You know what? That statement right there is already pretty good for you to go into. You're making me do this. I would have never left my children. You make me do this, right? And you had grief that, well, your children grew up on the other side. You didn't get to.
Right.
So is this happening through childbirth? Like, is this where, like, does both the mother and the son pass?
No, just the mother. There are two situations going on here. One is he's hanging out with his mom, and the community finds out that there's a child from the first book, the children hang out, the poor children, the street children that Judy had sent us pictures of, one of them is going to get to pass. So they're about to go and tell the good news to the kid going, hey, it's your turn coming soon. Come check out your new surrounding. You're going to die soon. But after heading there, they meet a mom who has a new baby. So we can assume it's childbirth related issue, which was happened to my grandmother. And then she's about to die, and they're preparing her that, let me show you where you're going to go next. You actually don't have a lot of sins or something like that. You're actually going to be okay. You're going to a good place. So they're preparing her. So Afrar and Arvez bump into her along the way, where she gets to then plead her case. I don't want to go. I don't want to leave my baby. What do you mean this is a better outcome for my baby? And I'm thinking, yeah, what do you mean that's a better outcome for your baby? It's not.
Yeah.
Those are my personal emotions about it. And speaking of faith, Arvez has faith that you do not know God or you would trust him. And that there was another statement, from whom you will learn how tenderly and wisely God deals with all his children. He will show you how groundless are all your fears of separation and make known to you the love of God in 100 ways you little suspect at present. And I'm thinking, if I could feel this, because I don't feel this, this is faith. This would really heal me based on my own multi-generational injury that I have, that if my grandmother hadn't died, then, somebody like my mom wouldn't have shown up, and this and that wouldn't happen, and my dad wouldn't have been so needing a woman, and all this kind of stuff wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, this, and it definitely brought up, and I emailed you about this too, but like it brought up the questions of faith. It's like, well, how do you get this much faith?
How do you get this much faith? What do you have to release in order to get the faith? So in other words, so what is my current corrupt faith? My corrupt faith right now is that if God was sensitive to my emotional pain, because God is all happy and joyous and feel no bad emotions. So God, how would you know how terrible it's going to feel for a kid that's left behind and all the horrible other outcomes that came from out of it, from that one event? Mom died, and everything that's happened in my life ever since I can trace back to that one event. So I'm going, God, you're not actually really sensitive to my pain. So, because if you were, you wouldn't have made that happen. That's my corrupt faith right now, is that God is insensitive and God didn't make the best choice possible. God did not look out for the consequences, and I was unprotected as a result. So that's my current corrupt faith. And so I'm going to have to release that in order to make room for truth to enter.
I just thought of something. I mean, could your corrupt faith be from the emotions of your mother, your grandmother, and the pain that she still feels over this being carried down, as opposed to the act itself?
Exactly. Because she would have had grief that will have entered my dad. And he wasn't allowed to cry. He was 3 years old. He wasn't allowed to cry. His dad said, after 3 days of crying, look, you cut it out. You got to stop. We got to move. We got to go on living. And she also made the mistake of saying to my grandfather, please don't remarry. So her fear was any other woman you pick will probably mistreat the children because they're not hers. And I think that probably set up a whole sequence of events right there. So yeah, I've wondered about that this could be my grandmother's emotion I have, that I had to leave my child behind, and my dad was autistic and was her favorite. And then my dad has his grief about, they told him that mom's gone to the market, she'll be back soon. So he's got this idea of women can't go to the market because sometimes they don't come back. Even though he knew she's died, but he has his feelings. So he's very needy a woman, which was why then he wanted to marry an autistic man who said, but I want a wife. I want a wife, give me a wife. So that created that injury. That my grandfather, it's kind of a cultural story where if you want to fix a problem with one of your sons, just marry him and fix it. It's disastrous. So yeah, you're right. There could be a whole bunch of emotions I have.
Because that's kind of what the story says, I think, at the end. Because I thought he was kind of being hard on her when he was saying, this is the most painful case I have yet encountered of the resentment often shown by professing Christians at the intimidation that the time of their departure is at hand. So it's almost like he's saying, well, this is the worst case of her feeling bad. Well, why would she not feel bad? She's losing her child.
Okay, so that's really good for you to look at, Judith, right there. It's like, how could he be harsh on her, kind of judging her? What kind of Christian are you? She's losing her child. Like, that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But then he's saying you should be happy about it. And I'm thinking, oh, that's the connection. We should be happy about it, but we're not.
No, and let's be honest about it, but see how you felt in that experience. So that feeling right there is giving you a clue that you got some emotions you could be looking at. But why did that feel harsh? Why did that feel harsh to you?
Yeah.
Can you say more about, like, well, that felt harsh to me, and my mom's about to lose a kid. That was harsh. Can you say more?
It's like the judgment of it. Yeah, the woman's using, and it's almost like either there's not enough written in the book that he's describing that's being left out, or he's kind of glossing over it.
Okay.
But it seems like it would be a very tragic and upsetting.
So I would actually suggest that you actually kind of like write a letter to Afrar. Just go, Afrar, in that situation, here's how I felt you were doing. Like, here are my feelings about what I felt you were doing. And then get everything, just write down, like I said to you last week, go be mad at me and then see what comes out. I don't know if you did it, but you'd be surprised at what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And then you're going, oh, that's what that's about. So just let yourself have that conversation with him and be real. Be like, you were mean. How could you do that to her? Blah, 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 blah. And just let it all come out. See what emerges. What about others? How do you guys feel about that? Selena. Oh, sorry, who was Laura?
Sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say, sort of after that, it just, to me, it sort of demonstrates God's law of attraction and how it works, because she came from this place. Obviously, she was in quite a bit of distress, and Afra, having been the product of that same circumstance and survived life, and then there's that example that obviously he survived, and he said something as well.
He said something. Yes, better. I know it now, and both of us thank God for the loss I moaned for 40 years, and I go, what does
that he said?
Please help me see this so I can start having some faith in this stuff. Is that what you meant, Laura?
Yeah. Because then he said, but it was worth it, and I would do it, I don't know whether the exact.
He said it in the last 3 chapters, I would do it all over again or something.
Do it all over again because of.
I'm going to put it the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And also just that that her speaking to the mother and mentioning her own mother who is in the spirit world, she then wanted to connect with that lady. Yes. But also it was told, Aves, I think, told her that there's actually a lot of people going to be where you are that have been through similar things that you can speak to as well. Yes. But also that it's quite fun to set up the meeting, and I thought that was perfect because it's just such a great like description of how the law of attraction works when somebody's been through something, or just the perfectness of the whole situation. That's
well, she's being taken care of to prepare her for what she needs to accept. Like there's so much care being put to help her accept, which I felt like that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I go from the first 3 chapters, I'm going, I would like to experience this kind of care that is being put in place, but I'm not experiencing it in my day-to-day life, or I'm too numb, or I'm not watching out for it, that I can't. If I could feel like, oh, look at that. Every event I have is some kind of a preparation, an answer, a care. I would be a lot more sensitive to this loving God and trust him. But I'm not feeling it, which is, then I go, what are my resistance to that I am not feeling it? Because it must be happening. It's got to be happening. Or is it that there are too many spirit interference that we get distracted or get blocked?
Speaking of faith, because that just brings that word up again after hearing what you just said, and when hearing Mary's feedback as well, and how she remembered that there is quite a lot to do with faith, I mean, in all of the books, but and I wondered as well whether, because you know how a while ago, well, I did personally had issues getting through the second book, and it's probably a lot due to my lack of faith in God, and especially in God, like God being good. And so that, it brings up quite a bit for me.
And we're going to have to identify exactly what that faith is that we do have. Like I have this, my corrupt faith is God is not sensitive to my emotional pain and is not responding to me and is not taking care of. That is my corrupt faith right now. Could be 10 others I could find. So it's helpful for you to name exactly what it is that you do feel.
Yeah, and that God's, doesn't love me, or I'm not good enough to be loved by God, and
it's a good one.
All of that kind of stuff. But I feel like, I'm seeing it a lot differently now, especially in this last week, this whole book. But it's just got so much. Just seeing the design of how it all works, it just makes you think, like, even if God's never met me, like, the fact that all of this is being created in this way is a pretty big indication of the love that he has for us.
It's like, I would like to meet this God, please. Where is this? Can I? Yeah, we are having this desire, right? We're beginning to have a desire. I would like to see this happening in my day-to-day life. Selena, what came up for you when you were reading about the monk?
Well, I think that it's sort of like always been the age-old question, actually, of with her not wanting to leave her child behind, like the unfairness that we all feel about God, and how many people actually completely reject God on earth simply because why would a benevolent, loving God allow all this suffering to happen, and things like that, like mothers dying, leaving infants behind that would end up having what appears to us to be a bad life because of that.
Okay.
Isn't that kind of where a lot of people are at? Like they just can't accept that God's laws just work, and they're
what came up for you?
What came up for me?
Yeah.
Just that issue of how loving is this God? That feeling of, is he loving?
Exactly.
And why is it so hard to understand the laws that are supposed to be loving? Like,
okay.
Because they certainly don't comply with what humans want.
Okay. So use the I word. It's okay to say, this is how I feel God is. You should hear some of the things I've said about God, and I later had to go, I'm sorry, I had to get the feelings out.
Yeah.
Terrible feelings I had to work through. Decades to work through. Thank God they're over. I think God thinks not. God thinks there's more.
Yeah.
So I made peace with, like, you gotta go to that place where you feel like, how can God, what was it you said again? How can God create laws in which you can have babies be abandoned like that?
Yeah, and that they're just such a mystery, the laws. Like, where's the handbook? Where's the manual that explains every law and how it all manifests itself? And okay, you do this, and then that happens, you do this, and oh yeah, okay, now I get it.
No, but there's tantrum you could go into. Let yourself feel the tantrum. Let yourself feel how upset you really are.
Yeah.
That in God's world, it's perfectly fine. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of the baby. You go ahead and die. It's all right. I've got your kid. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
That's the feeling you have.
Well, and on the other hand, like a lot of people that have near-death experiences do have a wonderful experience, even though they're leaving behind all kinds of people and children and stuff. They get there and they're like, oh, I'm staying here. This is awesome.
Yeah.
And then when they realize that they can't, that's not what's happening to them, they're very upset and disappointed. Actually.
Yeah. So you come.
That is true. That's probably not that common for people to have the response she was having, like you said.
Yeah. Try to clarify exactly what it is you are feeling about God. If you were allowed to get mad at God right now about this issue, what would it be? Like I just realized now as I spoke, my feeling is, God, you're not going to take care of me. I know you're not going to take care of me, and you haven't. And I've got a long list of complaints about how you haven't. And that's like, oh, there comes the tantrum. Okay, I can go into that. And let all that grief come out and how I feel God hasn't taken care of me, so that I can get rid of it and then make room to feel how God is taking care of me. Because I can't make room for that until the pain comes out. So let yourself name it. This is your mom. I like to imagine myself like a 3-year-old, and this is my mom, and I'm going to go and tell her what's what. I'm just talking to my parent.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah,
that
I think for me it would be, send me the rule book.
Send me, where's the rule book? You didn't give me the book. Okay. Talk about it. Say more about this rule book. What would it have been like if you had a rule book?
Yeah. Pardon?
What would it have been like if you had a rule book?
Oh, I'm sure it would be disastrous.
What? You're criticizing yourself here.
I don't know. How complicated could you make a rule book? Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so
God is
the Bible
complicated.
supposed to be somewhat of a rule book?
What?
Isn't the Bible supposed to be something of a rule book? That's pretty complicated.
Yeah.
So God is complicated. God's laws are complicated. God's laws makes no sense. And then we get penalized for it when we didn't even know what it was. How can you punish me if I don't even know what the laws was? God.
Exactly.
Right? Isn't that the
yeah.
okay.
What's going to stop me from, what sin do I not have to commit so I don't get hit by a bus crossing the street?
You're so complicated and your rules makes no sense. And okay, did you see the feelings coming out now?
Yeah.
Just let them come out.
Yeah.
Get into those rants of like, your rules makes no sense, and then you punish me for blah blah. I've done so many of these. It's been great.
I would ask the question in this, and just listening to the conversation is, what's the distinction between God's decision, if you will, to take this person, and the role of the spirits or the guides like Afrar and Avraz? Like, what's the distinguishing? Because they essentially greeted this woman or something like that, if I understand that correctly. But they're doing God's work, so to speak.
Like Laura said, it's a beautiful law of attraction event that this mom is getting to meet a kid that was raised without a mother who's saying, I'm better for it.
Right.
The law of attraction. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thinking about the law of attraction version. Okay. So so it's the law of attraction, and it would be the law of the attraction of her.
Yes.
Be her law of attraction.
Well, I would say that that's God's work. God is arranging every step of the way, which I guess is a law of attraction, because God is always trying to reach out to us, to help her along the way, to address all of her worries and grief that will be taken care of, which I have no faith in right now. No, you're not taking care of it. Tantrum coming up. I think I'm going to be busy tonight.
But isn't it like the spirit that's around the father in the chapter we're going to, the same thing as like Afar is also attracted to, like you said, law of attraction. They just run into each other.
Can you say more? What do you feel the attraction was about? Let's go to chapter 6, the bondage of sin, where they're hanging out and they happens to bump into his dad, who had a slight desire to speak with him.
Yeah.
What do you think that law of attraction was about?
Yeah, that was, well, it was obviously for both the father and him to kind of talk to one another, but his Afrar's guide was kind of like, hang back, don't engage, wait until he engages. But I was also thinking ahead of that spirit that was around the father that they found when he woke up. And that creepy thing, He was like, what are you doing here? And the guy's like, I don't know why I'm here. The spirit.
And so
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but I was thinking about that spirit attraction when it came to him running into the woman with that was dying in childbirth or after childbirth.
Yeah. Now, in that last chapter, when they're addressing that, they call him a sepulcher. No, he's calling the father that. The spirit, the bound spirit. The Zacchaeus is saying, you might have known, but you willfully shut your eyes and ears, as he is doing now. What he is, you have been, and the punishment of your bondage to him is but a repetition of that you have inflicted on another. What does that mean? Are they saying you'll have to watch? I don't understand that sentence.
I was confused about that too, frankly.
Okay.
Kind of, just my initial feeling was that spirit was on earth exactly like Afra's dad was, the exact same condition, and he had a spirit attached to him, the same as he's attached to Afra's dad, that was binding him. And so as part of the compensation, because he's not sorry about it and he's bound another person to him,
okay,
part of the compensation is he's now bound to Afra's dad.
Ooh, I didn't see that.
And will be until he has some feeling of being sorry for what he's done.
So, and also Afra's dad is reflecting back to him, this is who you were. You are cold, you're a businessman-like, you have the money. So is that also part of law of compensation? They have to look at somebody like, this is what you are.
Yeah, you just can't, he has to constantly see it. He has to, so if he's not willing to look at it in himself, he's having to see it in another. To try, as part of the conversation, to try and help, I feel the conversation is to try and help him see that he's got those exact same feelings and emotions in himself. It's God's loving way to help him try and develop some.
Yeah. In other words, what you're saying is that, so if we have a spirit that we have bound to us, it's on us to have been mindful that we have some strong addictions that is keeping spirits stuck to us, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, that adds a little more pressure now. It's like, oh, I do need to know who I'm keeping stuck to me by my addictions. Because now he has to experience being stuck. I didn't see that. Wow, okay.
I also found it interesting with the father, or at least what I understood, was the father had the intent or the desire that he wanted to talk to Afrar. So he had that intention, but then it was also about the father's lack of noticing for a couple of reasons. And it felt that there was spirit influence, but then it also, I wasn't clear, I guess, in some ways, if it was just his lack of awareness or being able to pick up on the signs or what have you. I don't know if that makes sense. But I noticed that too, because I noticed that in myself when I go through something where I will ask for some sort of connection, and then something happens and I get distracted, by something else, or I want to fall asleep or something like that. Like there's some other thing that kind of distracts me and takes me away from really being open to getting the answer.
Well, the father desire is the one running the attraction. So the father has no desire to love his son. Like that is a desire. And his desire is to grow his business. And due to that desire, he has spirits that are kind of harassing him around business.
Okay.
I feel like he was scheming and trying to figure stuff out. And he's more interested in kind of negotiating all night long, not even trying to sleep here, not even trying to, he's constantly on that, how to grow my business, because that is what he loves.
Right.
he had loved his son more, than that attraction would have, like the mother who's going to lose the baby. The first thing she's thinking is, how do I get back to my kid? That's love. That's her desire, and it will be assisted. So his desire is to not feel love, or at this point to not feel his conscience about how he treated his son.
Right. And I guess what I'm just maybe trying to get clear on is, did the father initiate the contact?
That's what it's, yeah.
So the father, that's what I'm saying, is that the father initiated the contract, and then, but then, like you're saying, because of his distractions in terms of his own thought process around his business, obsession with that, the spirit attachment and other things,
which are all emotions,
he wasn't able to hear or make that connection, or it wasn't being able to be a solid connection.
I felt like, yeah, Karen.
I was going to say also, I feel it's because the desire was weak.
Yeah.
It was a weak desire. Yeah. So you see, that's why Afra wasn't even sensitive to it. And that's why they needed assistance. And if the desire had been stronger, I feel that's a really important kind of lesson in that if you have a really strong desire to connect with somebody, you'll be drawn to them. But if it's very weak, not much is going to happen. And so, yeah, and then, like as you were saying, with all the spirit influence and his other emotional conditions, it hindered the communication.
Yeah.
And I see, go ahead. Who was it? No? Okay. I also see spirit influence as either something to meet my desire, or to meet my desire to avoid another emotion. Like they're both desires. I want to avoid a certain emotion, so now spirits are going to help me to get away from it, to distract me. Or I desire something that spirits will then get involved and help me. They're both emotion, but one is avoiding and one is seeking. Or both. I don't want to feel fear, so I'm going to go feel energy and courage and, anger, and like the choices are, but all the choices are emotional, Kevin.
Right.
Desires.
I was just going to maybe clarify that. So what is because I've heard Jesus talk about the law of desire and like talk about things like prayer. And then I've also heard him call people on, your desire is not strong enough, or you're not in that place. Like you want that, but you really don't. Mm-hmm. So I'm just curious, like, what's the practice here? Is it really just having that strong desire that is based in emotion? Is that what we're talking about? Like to be able to make that connection?
For me, first I have to identify the current desire that is already running the show. What is the desire I do already have? Because if I currently don't have a connection, it's because I desire to not have a connection. So don't judge it. Just go, what is it that I am desiring based on my law of attraction? I do not desire to have this connection. That is what I must be feeling. I'm not feeling it, but it must be there. So then I set an intention of like, well, I like to become aware that this is my true desire about the situation. And then the feelings come up and you're going, oh, it's really angry. I'm really angry. Or, I'm really fearful, or, I'm still pissed off about that thing that happened 5 years ago. So really, I, haven't resolved it, and so I have no desire. You have to first identify the pre-existing desire. And then if the desire isn't very pleasant, then try to emotionally experience this desire so you can get rid of it. So then you can start to move it along. And then you can start to ask to feel a different desire. I don't know. I feel like
where does humility come in?
To be willing to see what's really in there in you, to be able to go, what I really desire is I just wanted control in a relationship. I really didn't intend to love. Oh, that's embarrassing, but okay, looks like that's what was really going on. Is that kind of stuff, like, this kind of awareness is where you go, yeah, I really wasn't really truly loving, and I just wanted my addictions met, or these are the addictions met. This was my real motivation. Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I feel really entitled. I feel entitled and I'm not giving up. I feel very justified, have felt very justified in my anger, and that I will not forgive no matter what. And I was very like, I will not give this up. And I felt it emotionally that I will not give it up. I will never forgive. And felt it and felt it and felt it. And now it's gone. And it's like, no longer kind of interfering with my attempt to try to understand forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
So
this was probably the most impactful for me out of the 3 chapters, because I really, really just liked, and it was really to understand the clarity of that spirit, that communication. And I guess it's, if I was doing it myself right now, I would just be able to, and I would ask probably a similar questions to what you're saying is, I have this desire, and what are the blocks that are holding me from that desire? Or can,
good questions.
Can I get help to understand the resistance or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
I'm kind of saying that, but I'm also kind of maybe asking that too, in the sense that like that would be based on what I know is that would be the thing that I would ask for at this stage.
I chat with you after, like next week or so, if you want me to help you work it out. Like, here's what I think I'm desiring. Here's what's going on. I'm happy to talk to you about it after if you want.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I think this story actually it's like an emotional block, like the father and the son. The father wants to talk to the son, but he basically wants to tell the son about himself and not take any accountability for what he's done.
No.
Right.
Because he's just kind of keeps on, if you apologize to me, and don't think I'm going to apologize because I have not done anything wrong, with those emotions.
Yeah. Let's just we're done, right? Okay, you forgive me, I forgive you, we're good now, there's nothing left to say. And I'm thinking, there's a lot of compensation still coming, right? Like you still have to repent and forgive. And so I think it sounds like the father's going, well, we're forgiving each other, there's nothing left to talk about, and God's laws are not going to ask for anything anymore. Like I feel like he's trying to get away with it.
Yeah, he was. And that's the emotional block where he's can't even reach out and hear his son or reach his son. And if it wasn't for those other factors that they were able to talk with the other spirit there, kind of seeing.
Which were matching his desire that business is more important.
Yeah.
But they had a slight regret of going, we didn't really get along, did we? There was a slight twinge of conscience. And hey, as a parent, it's terrible to have to feel your conscience about how you damage your children. So I can feel him there, even though I want to say you're going to be okay and you're going to be, you're going to be okay. You get through it. But it's a terrible, terrible feeling to feel about. I can see why parents squirm and squirm and squirm until they're forced to look at it.
Hard to be on the other side of that too, with a parent who is not willing to see the damage that they've caused, or still continue to cause through the way that they are. Like being on the tail end of that is kind of pretty harsh, especially. I guess that's why, I don't know, we sort of end up disconnecting from our parents when they don't, they're not willing to stop hurting us.
So what are your demands on your parent right now?
I've got definitely heaps with my mum. I have a feeling of I want to punish her for the way that she is towards me. So, and I've had to go through a lot of anger already towards my mum, and I think I've had a lot of spirit interference in that interaction as well.
They don't want you to forget.
Very different now than what it was in terms of my rage towards her. But
now in this conversation, you're saying, I have feelings about a parent that does not want to admit, they don't want to wake up to their conscience. So
yeah, that's my demand, isn't it? I want you to see what you've done. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can name that specifically, I feel like you haven't quite named what that is yet. Like, I would like to know. I think it's a feeling of, if only she could accept and admit to a conscience that we could still have a potential. I could still maybe then still have a relationship with her because I still want it.
Yep.
And I can't have it until she's sorry.
Yep, I think you're right. Yep, because that brings instant tears. I just feel like I want to have that connection, and I still hope that maybe I can, because I still want to feel like I have a mother. or something, just anything. But
you still you still want to live. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Wow. We got through quite a bit, I think, today. But it was felt better that we could just focus in on a couple, like we didn't have to talk about everything in the book. So kind of felt like a relief to me as well. Any last words about
something. What really stuck out for me in that was that he had so any real love of any kind for his son.
Yeah.
That he couldn't even see his condition. He would obviously have a better condition. And he couldn't even, just really blind to his son in every way. It's that he had this, I would think you could see it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
He didn't even want to see, he didn't want his son to have anything.
No. Yeah.
Oh, you're doing real good here. Good on you.
Yeah.
But even that, nothing. No.
Yeah, I didn't get the sense that he was spiritually connected. Like he was asking spirit, but he wasn't really truly introspective.
Yeah, really interested. So I wonder what he actually saw of his son, or if he could just feel him. I don't know. Yeah, weird.
It's kind of like this regret of the parent who's not. Seems like that's what we're talking about here. This grief we have about the parent that still does not want to reach out to the kid who's saying, I am willing to forgive you. I'm working on forgiving you. And even then, there's still no desire from the parent towards the child, and how terrible that feels. It feels terrible when a parent has no desire for the child. I'm pretty numb to it right now. I'm listening to this conversation going, well, that's what's going on here. I still didn't pick it up. But okay, I'm quite numb to it, to that pain of not being desired.
Yeah, for his parent not to even say, oh, I'm so glad to see you. Nothing. Nothing. Zero. Awful.
And for me, I think it speaks also to that hierarchy of I am your parent, I know better, I am better, you are just my child, you're nothing. And the amount of anger and sadness and that conversation brought up for me was quite huge.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Felt like I was getting a talking to from my dad.
Wow.
So but that hierarchy is almost palpable. Like the dad is like, well, you're my son, of course you're my son, you just have to listen to me, I know better, you have to listen to me, and this is what I'm going to do. What do you mean you forgive me? I have nothing to atone for. I'm perfect. You're the child, you're the one who has everything to I should be forgiving you for your for I don't know, you being a child, you being my child.
You even go, even now you're being difficult, and I'm being so merciful to you. Even
yeah.
You seem to not like him just because they weren't in agreement, actually.
No.
They weren't in agreement, so you're not a good son. So,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you're not agreeing with me. Right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that it's just that it's like, of course you wouldn't see who your son really is, because you think as a parent, you think you're above that child. So seeing that child wouldn't even register who that person was.
Never mind the humility of learning from your child, because our children are always in better soul condition. So we are the one that could be learning from them, but we don't have the humility that they're closer to God and has more truth in them. And what a loss that is for the parents.
Yep.
Wow.
That's similar. That same topic came up for me actually in a different part of the book when I was reading about the kids when they were talking.
Yeah.
And I just got this feeling of just not necessarily the parental side of it, but just as a societal kind of beliefs around children and how children are treated quite differently to adults, as in, you know, and it's the feeling of like, because a lot of these children, if they were in sort of like a home or a college, they called it like an orphanage, I'm assuming is something like that. Just the lack of regard for children, and you know, how we're just kind of thrown away, and you're like a second-class citizen, really, that's how I remember feeling. And I think my generation might be sort of towards the tail end of that feeling, but it is still quite a prominent feeling inside of me, that children are worth less than adults. And yeah, so I feel like there's more of a societal kind of blanket feeling about that.
And I've done similar things to my children as I was not soon enough to sensitize myself to these feelings. Some things I was sensitive to, and I treated them. The way I was treating my children were really triggering all the adults around me who thought I was going to spoil them rotten and they were going to just turn into like gangsters because I treated them with some decency. But now I can see, because I have an addiction to being an authoritarian, that I'm the authority. And a lot of parents have children because of that addiction. I want to feel I'm the authority, and if I have children, now I get to do it. So they deliberately empowered a child in order to get the addiction. Like, I had children out of addictions. They were all addictions. So I used them for my own emotional needs that I don't want to process.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be enforced. That's like free slave for you to get all these feelings met.
Yeah.
And then you can't wait to be an adult yourself so you can finally feel like an authority yourself. And now you have to disenfranchise somebody else to get the feeling, right? Addictions mean somebody else has to give up something.
I was just going to add one thing about that spirit communication this week, because I've been in touch with both my dad and my mother, who are both passed. And I noticed that with my dad, he was just such a dominant, outgoing person that it was very easy to connect with him and have a conversation. But then my mom was so quiet and so herself, and it's almost like I had to pry for information. And she's been this really quiet thing that's kind of like I can feel her wounds in me, but I'm trying to have a conversation, but I can't talk to her. It's the same as if I'm talking to her on the earth. And I've noticed that all of a sudden, like, it's just this, like, this is why this chapter was so strong, because I just realized that there's this block of trying to connect with my mother that I can't talk.
But I would question your addictions that's driving you wanting to connect. The addictions driving why you want to connect to your parents. Because I would connect to my guide. That is more useful. That's more productive. Like, God has decided this person is best suited for my care and development right now. Develop that relationship. And then question why you want to connect to your parents. What are the addictions driving it? Unless you want to trigger your emotions.
Well, what I feel, and maybe I'm not clear on this, but what I feel is that I'm connecting because I feel that there's something, a wound within me that has my mother attached to me in some way.
Okay.
So and I might be wrong. Maybe it's just but that's what I feel. As I just feel that there's something there, and I feel that it's my mother. But I can definitely ask my guides for more clarity on that.
Yeah, whenever I do any spirit interaction, first I talk to God. I set my intention with God. God, I feel some spirits around me, or I'm dealing with this emotion and I have a feeling I must have spirits helping me with this emotion, which means I've got spirits attached, bound to me. We all need to break free from each other. God, can I talk to the spirits attached to me in this issue? So first I talk to God. And then I call on my guides. If I know their names, I'll call on their names going, please help me have this interaction. I want this interaction to be in harmony with God in our conversation. Then I engage. It really helps to just take step 1, step 2, step 3, then engage. It really helps, because this is a free will issue and you have to invite, I want God to help me. I want my guides to help me, and they will step in and help.
Yeah. I almost feel like my guides need to have a conversation with my mother, because that's my block, is having that conversation with her.
there's a neediness in you about what you want for your mom. So let's talk about that next week. Let's have a conversation, you and I, and let's work it out. I'm happy.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, it is time. This is I love this. I'm really enjoying, and I really appreciate all of you.
Yeah, I thought it was much better this week. And I thought we covered, kind of material. I wanted to say just something really quickly about last week that might help other people. Like last week, I was flailing around trying to understand that very first paragraph of the book. And afterwards, I just really prayed about it and really just kept rereading it. And in that process, I feel I got to understand actually what it really meant, which I didn't understand in the group last week. So I was just going to suggest.
What was it?
Sorry?
When you say you prayed about it, what specifically did you pray? What was
I just prayed to understand it.
Pray to
like
understand.
What's the meaning of this paragraph? I just kept rereading it. And then I felt there was just so much in it that I was just oblivious to. So I was just going to recommend that process for anyone in any part of the book, that if you really, like me, some paragraphs that you read that you're like, I don't know what that's talking about. I found that really
prayer. It never crossed my mind to actually ask, can I please help me understand this paragraph? It's actually a prayer, like, hello, thank you. Yes. You can
Thank you. That's awesome.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So
thank you.
I will stop the recording now. I'm heading
Can I just ask